Hello, welcome to Video Mania 2. I'm the dude manning the counter, Duncan, and today we're going to cover a bunch of horror movies. I'm going to try to keep this video not too long. Hopefully it won't go over 15 minutes and 20 minutes maximum. Let's hope. Now anyway, you're going through the video store right back in the day, looking for a good horror movie for Halloween weekend. It's coming up this Sunday. So, I'm going to briefly explain the movies I have in my collection. I talked extensively about a few of them, but I just don't have time to cover them all. So I'm just going to knock these out. So they deserve more, but I just don't have the time. So we're going to start right away. Let's dive in. You're checking out the shelves and different stuff. So here's the first one. This is from John Carpenter. This was his follow-up from Halloween, I believe. Or Halloween 2. Not sure, because I only liked the first Halloween. But anyway, here's another one of his movies called The Fog. It has Adrienne Barbeau in it and Hal Holbrook. And it's about a town that gets taken over by fog, and there's ghosts in the fog because the town is cursed because they, for their 100th anniversary or something like that, they really screwed over some settlers with there was a leper colony, and they're coming for retribution, and they come in through the fog. This one has some pretty good scares, and it's actually one of John Carpenter's more underrated movies. I really like it. Now, next we have the 2005 remake that's directed by Rupert Wainwright, who also directed Stigmata. This stars Tom Welling of Smallville fame. And this one is toned down. It's not nearly as scary, and many people don't think it's as good. And there are a lot of arguments to be made for that. But I liked it. The special effects are obviously better because it's newer. And the backstory is explained a little more. There's a little more exposition. You get to actually see it. They don't just talk about it, so that they go a little more detail. So, kind of depends on your opinion, but I think the original's better, but this one's still pretty entertaining too. So, there's another one. Next, we have Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives, and this one's written and directed by Tom McLaughlin, and it stars Tom Matthews as a more grown-up version of Tommy Jarvis, and he takes on Jason. This movie's kind of an action movie in a lot of ways, and it has a soundtrack from Alice Cooper, so it's a lot of cool music, and it's a little campier, and it doesn't take itself too seriously, but a ton of fun. It's probably my favorite in the whole series, and a lot of people really like it. It's just a blast. Then we have another Friday the 13th Part 8. This is another one in this series. I'm sorry, I'm winging this, so I may screw up my sentences a little bit, so bear with me. This one is Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, and I really liked this one because they changed the setting from Camp Crystal Lake. He comes back to life, of course, like he always does. And this time, a lot of people were kind of mad because, it says Jason Takes Manhattan, and he doesn't spend a whole lot of time there. Some people call it Jason Spends Time in Canada because, have budget constraints, or Jason takes a boat because a lot of it's on a boat, but the setting has changed. I thought the boat setting was actually really cool. I think they were going to shoot more in New York, but they didn't have the money, so the boat it is. But this movie's an absolute blast. A lot of cool kills. This is part of the box set, but it's one of my favorite in the series. Either my second or third favorite out of all of them, but I always watch it this time of year, so check it out. Next, we have an underrated movie. This one's a little more serious. It's called Stir of Echoes, starring Kevin Bacon. And it's kind of like, it came out a little bit after The Sixth Sense. Everyone's like, oh great, a Sixth Sense ripoff. But it's really not. It's a little, there's kind of a same premise, but there's some differences, kind of a mystery element. Kevin Bacon is awesome here. And it's a very underrated movie. I mean, his performance is one of his best. So it's a really good movie. And people that, first were kind of, oh, just another knockoff. Good movie. So I highly recommend it. Then we have one of my all-time favorite movies, period. Maybe top 5, definitely top 10. John Carpenter's Vampire, starring James Woods and Thomas Ian Griffith. And Thomas Ian Griffith, look for him. He's returning to the screen in the 4th season of Cobra Kai. So here he plays the head vampire Valak, and James Woods is this fast-talking vampire hunter, and has some cool mythology, and it's a lot grittier and nastier. And it jokes about that. James Woods improvised a lot of his dialogue. but it shows a lot of the. It's grittier because they're not in like rented formal wear. You know, it's not as sophisticated. I'm here. These vampires are nasty, but a lot of cool kills, a lot of gore. John Carpenter did this, of course. Really good. Next, we have Vampires Los Muertos, which is a sequel of sorts to John Carpenter's Vampires. None of the cast returns, which is kind of a shame. But this isn't half bad in its own right. Still kind of that nasty feeling to it. And this time it has John Bon Jovi's the head slayer. But it's the same mythology, and you also have Natasha Gregson Wagner. And so some pretty interesting ideas in the mythology. Not a bad movie. So if you're looking for something a little different or not as well known, check this out. Then we have Warlock 3, The End of Innocence. And I really didn't like the first two Warlock films with Julian Sands. But when they brought Bruce Payne in to play a Warlock, I was like, alright, I gotta check this out. It's a cool haunted house setting, kind of. It's got some cool scares, and they did it all on a small budget. Ashley Lawrence from the Hellraiser movies is in here. She's great. Check this out. It's a really fun horror movie. I think it's free to stream on Tubi, if I'm not mistaken. Don't hold me to that, because that changes all the time. But absolutely awesome. Bruce Payne is awesome as always, because anytime he does horror or plays some kind of sinister dude, he hits a home run. So, check this out. Then we have White Noise with Michael Keaton and Deborah Kara Unger. This movie is more of a supernatural thriller, not really horror, but it's how dead people communicate through radio waves, or like on a radio signal, and they're trying to tune in and catch people. It's an interesting thing about loss and grief and communication. It's pretty deep. Not a bad flick. I rented it one night and was surprised how good it is. So, might be something of interest. Next we have kind of a supernatural mystery, but a little bit of horror. It's called What Lies Beneath with Harrison Ford and Michelle Pfeiffer. This is directed by Robert Zemeckis, who did Forrest Gump, the Back to the Future movies. So, this one has higher budget, has that Hitchcock feel to it for sure. Michelle Pfeiffer is phenomenal here. She's really awesome because she sees a ghost and she just doesn't know what's going on. She has to try to solve this mystery of what this ghost wants, and is she going crazy? She doesn't know, but Michelle Pfeiffer really good here, so pretty good movie. It's a little more, it's not a slasher by any means, but it's pretty cool. Love the Vermont setting too. Next we have, I watched it earlier on VHS because the 4K 25th anniversary edition is hard to come by, so good luck if you can get one, but I watched Scream earlier. I absolutely love Scream. I forgot how great it was. We also have Scream 2, which this first one's amazing. This one's not half bad either. It's pretty good. After that, I was kind of like, I hope the new one's good, but Scream 3 and the other one, I was just kind of, but the first two, pretty good. Then we have some from the Hellraiser series. I like the first Hellraiser movie, pretty good, but this one I liked a lot more. Hellraiser 3 was pretty cool. As Terry Farrell is a journalist investigating these series of gruesome events and crazy stuff going on. Pinhead is more prominent here, and one of my favorite metal bands, Armored Saints, featured in one of the clubs, so that's really cool. This one goes completely crazy, but pretty fun. One of my more favorite entries into this series. Then we have Hellraiser Bloodline, which I saw in my college dorm at Lenore Ryan on Halloween. It just came on and I got hooked on it. Pretty good. It has some interesting ideas. Kind of a shame it's credited as Alan Smithy, and those who don't know Alan Smithy's, if you directed something and you don't like how it turned out, or you're too much creative differences and your vision was taken away, and you're like, I directed this, but y'all cut it up, I hate it, so take my name off, and you put in Alan Smithy. So it's directed by a guy named Kevin Yaher, who did the miniature effects for Chucky and stuff. He does a lot of creature effects. I think that's who directed it, but there was conflicting stuff, so he took his name off. But Pinhead's in here, and there's a bloodline, and some pretty cool stuff, actually. I thought it was pretty good, but, You know, it has its following, but obviously the director didn't like. But that happens sometimes. I've seen cast and directors hate stuff that I end up liking. So this is one of those. Then we have another entry in the Hellraiser series that some people aren't as big on, but I really liked it. It was another interesting take. The thing about the Hellraiser is they would try new and different approaches a lot of times. This is Hellraiser Hellworld, and Pinhead is in it, but not as prime as you think, and it's not in the way you think. It's a little bit different. Lance Henriksen stars in this, and he's always awesome. And it has Catherine Winnick from the TV show Vikings, and Carrie Payton from Fear the Walking Dead or The Walking Dead. I don't know which. I don't keep up with that show, but he's a pretty big star now. And, of course, Henry Cavill. So you had a lot of people who you didn't know who they were, but they're big now. And so Hellraiser Hellworld does some pretty interesting twists, has some cool ideas, and I enjoy it. I watched it a few nights ago. I liked it. Then we have a movie that didn't get as much love as I thought it should have, and I wanted a sequel, and they talked about it, but never got it. It's Dracula Untold. This is almost a fantasy movie, and Luke Evans plays Dracula, but it goes back to the Prince Vlad roots of, like, you know, he was this warrior, and, you know, people feared him, and now he kind of unleashes it, and it kind of an origin story how he became Dracula, and they do some cool stuff, and there was some universe they were going to set up, but they never followed through with it. It's kind of a shame. But this movie's great, so you look for something pretty cool. I recommend this. Then we have another movie, Dracula 2000. I really liked. This was Dracula, but it was a different origin story. It has a really cool twist of how Dracula came to be, and, you know, his origin, they say, goes much further than that, and they reveal that later. But Gerard Butler, when no one knew who he was, plays the title character. It has Johnny Lee Miller, Justine Waddle, Jennifer Esposito, and Omar Epps are in there too. There's Jerry Ryan from Star Trek Voyager's in there, and the singer Vitamin C was a pop singer in the early 2000s. It's in there. It has a new metal soundtrack. It's really cool. It's definitely, it's kind of appropriate when they're like 2000, because it has a feel of, you know, the year 2000. But I watched this last night, and it's really fun. I had a smile on my face all the time. So very entertaining. The Prophecy, starring Christopher Walken. He made some straight-to-video sequels that weren't as good. But this movie was directed by Gregory Wyden, who wrote the original Highlander movie. So, you know, he always has interesting ideas, and this is definitely an original movie. It's really different, a cool western setting. It's about angels that are warring factions of angels, and it does a lot of crazy stuff. And it's really supernatural. Christopher Walken is great. Of course, this is a role tailored for him. So it's really different, really innovative. It has Virginia Madsen in it as well, so you got some great acting talent, and it's one I really recommend for something that's supernatural and really different. Give it a look at this weekend. One of my all-time favorite Halloween movies that I always watch is Sleepy Hollow, starring Johnny Depp and Christina Ricci. It's directed by Tim Burton, one of Johnny Depp and Tim Burton's many collaborations. This is one of my favorites from them. And, you know, Ichabod Crane has to solve the Headless Horseman murders. This has, you know, it was mainly shot on a soundstage, but it's cool setting, the music by Danny Elfman, you know, all the Tim Burton stuff. This is a Tim Burton movie for sure, but really cool, kind of a mystery element. It's got some gore and scares and stuff, but a real blast. It's when DVDs first came out, it's one of the first ones I bought, so I saw it in the theater. It's a really good movie, so hope you like it. So I definitely recommend it if you haven't seen it. And we have another movie that kind of fallen on the radar some now. It's Mimic, starring Mira Sorvino and F. Murray Abraham and Josh Brolin, to name a few. And it's directed by Guillermo del Toro, you know, who's gone on to do Blade 2 and many other things, you know, great director. And Mimic is about a creature that, you know, is kind of designed by science, and then he can kind of look like a human a little bit, and he's like this massive fly in a way, you know, this big moth. So it's got some cool scares. It explains everything really well. Pretty cool thrills, and Guillermo del Toro, his touches, you know, for the monsters and stuff, you can definitely see the presence here. Pretty good movie. I try to watch it, you know, around Halloween. It's got some pretty good scares. And then, last and certainly not least, is Shocker from Wes Craven. This was, he wanted to create another slasher villain, to make it, more of them. And Shocker was a result of that. I watched this last night, and this movie is Wes Craven's craziest movie. This movie is insane. I mean, it stars Mitch Pileggi as Horace Pinker, who's this TV repairman that practices black magic and kills families. He's a complete over-the-top psycho, and he when they electrocute him, in the electric chair, he can transfer himself to different bodies and through electrical currents, and he can pop out of TVs. It's nuts. Just, he possesses everything. A massage chair, I mean, you name it. This movie is just nuts. It also stars Peter Berg as a football player who tries to, is the protagonist of the movie. He's the hero. And Peter Berg, more known as a director now. He directed The Rundown, among other movies, but pretty good director too. But here he was just the actor. But Wes Craven, this is probably it's definitely his most insane movie. This movie is violent and comical and just nuts all at the same time. It's really, really crazy. So if you're looking for something, you're like, oh my God, what is this? I've even people are like, may not have necessarily liked it, but they're like, well, I won't forget that one because that movie is nuts. So this one's, if you're looking for something just completely nuts, this is the one to go with. Okay, that covers it. I actually did pretty well there. So I hope those will help suggestion. There's so many other movies I covered more extensively. You can look in previous videos. But anyway, I hope everyone has a great and safe Halloween weekend. And I'll be getting back to the action movies next month. And there's some new movies coming out. And lots of exciting new physical media releases for me to cover. So I will be getting into all that. So thank you all so much. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like movies that fell under the radar and just love movies a lot. Anything, I cover it all. But mainly older stuff that fell under the radar. So if you're into that, give me a like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you next time. Take care and have a great weekend.